Hi friends, you've arrived at the space in between. I'm your host, Deneen Sig. I'm an attorney, a mom, an author, an entrepreneur, and a widow. You are in the right place if you want to learn how we will navigate life's transitional moments, both good and not so good. Together, we will find the magic and bring the light to anything you are dealing with. Come sit with us in the space in between. So hi everyone, welcome to the space in between. I am today recording in New York City at Smash Studios, and I am so happy because I have Amy Choi here with me, and it is a beautiful day in Manhattan, and she is going to sit with us on the space in between. And Amy Choi is one of those people that is a tried and true, dyed and blue New Yorker. From cradle, possibly to grave, and I hope not for a very long time. She's laughing right now. She was one of those people that was involved in social media when social media was a baby, and she was a baby. She kind of grew up with social media, was actively involved in when it was only like Facebook, maybe, and Instagram.
Not even Twitter.
Twitter, Facebook and Twitter. She had like a blog back before any of us really knew what blogs were. And she's someone that is really active right now in an ad agency. She is someone who is, I wrote this down before, so I want to get it right. And I want her to educate us because I know she works at a really amazing job at an ad agency. But what the official thing is, she's a creator marketing expert, and she currently runs the influencer team at an integrated advertising agency. Now, I don't know. I have an idea what integrated means. I want Amy to tell us. But before she tells us, I just want you guys to know that she's probably done everything and anything that has to do with social media, with creator content, with marketing. If you have something that you've put out there before Snapchat, before TikTok, before any of these things, she was the queen of it all. And she's probably now the king of it all, right? So tell us, Amy, first and foremost, what is integrated ad agency? What does it do?
Well, Deneen, it's so good to be here, first of all, and thank you for that lovely intro. Influencer marketing has evolved over the past several years. You know, when you think about the marketing channels, it used to be in siloed. Everyone had their own job. There was, planning, and then there was paid media, and there was TV, and there was print, and there was this. And, we live in a world now in terms of advertising and marketing where those different channels are becoming more integrated, and the right hand is talking to the left hand. It's more seamless. It feels bigger. And when you layer something like influencers on top of that, it's a whole nother world. Like you said, I started at a social media agency when literally it was just Facebook and Twitter. And it's so funny to think about that now because how many platforms are we on right now? But we were one of the first agencies out there, and we started a lot of these worldwide big brands channels. So if you scroll back to the first post of Sports Authority, which, by the way, TBT, because they all closed down. The first post in Barbie, the first post in Guinness, that was me as a 21-year-old writing it. And it's so funny when you think about it. Our agency was run very young. But, coming out of college, they were like, who knows social media? These kids do. And here's the responsibility of writing content and community management for a lot of these brands. And it honestly was boot camp for me professionally to really grow in that space and evolve. And Snapchat came about, like you said, that was the beginning. And there was Foursquare back then, and it kind of died. And there was Pinterest that came about.
That's right, Pinterest.
Pinterest came, Instagram started to come on, and we see the evolution of all these platforms. But, in a way, it's so interesting because people then had a channel to voice their own opinions, create content, and really share kind of like what you're doing, Deneen, right now, and sharing more about their personal lives or any other topic that they have an interest in. And,
Did I get them all, by the way? Did I get all the channel? Is there something?
There's Tumblr back there.
Right.
I had a blog when it was GeoCities. I had a Zanga in high school. I had a live journal. These are
I've heard of these, but I have zero familiarity with them.
They come and go, and the ones that stay, obviously, I'm sure different platforms with different features, but it's really what the people tend to go to. And so right now, everyone has a preference, TikTok or Instagram, but it's the people that you follow. So thank you for that intro, because I feel like I have seen it all, but I also feel like there's so much more out there.
I feel like since I've met you, which by the way, when we were doing like our pre-interview sort of meetup, you were 10 years, but I realized it was longer than 10 years.
Was it?
Yeah, because if we count it from Gray, it was more than 10 years. That's why I'm like, you were younger than you thought when we met. And so I feel like you grew up with a lot of these things. And that's why I think you're like, you know, Howard Stern's the king of all media. I see you as like the queen of all media. You are the person that I would go to for advice in any of these divisions. And
Thank you.
I think you are really probably well situated at your job and probably the right person for what you're doing, and they are probably really lucky to have you.
Thank you.
I'm sure you feel really fortunate that you found that placement too. Like,
Absolutely.
I don't want to say anything like, oh, they're lucky. You know, I think it's probably a really great alignment.
Yes, it's such a great synergy. And no, thank you for that, Deneen. And I will say, you know, a lot of brands now are starting to come around and understand that in order to reach not only millennials, but the Gen Z audience, and I know, you know, your daughter is in that range, like you have to figure out what your strategy is with these influencers and creators and social media platforms. I mean, I'll tell you this. I was on Twitter when I was in college. And back then it was, you know, people were like, what's Twitter? And like, what are you writing about? And I was like, on my way to class. Like, it was just a status. Like, no one knew. But I was an early adopter of all these platforms. And it's so interesting, as I'm sure any consumer of media, it's just so interesting to see the evolution of everything and how it's changed. You know, when I think about advertising, and I love the show Mad Men. Have you watched?
I actually never watched Mad Men. And I know that it was a really good show. Like, I'll give it its props from far away.
Yes.
And maybe one day I'll turn around and watch it. It just never got into my rotation.
Okay. Well, you'll have to put that on your list.
I mean, yeah.
In the 50s and 60s of like when it was print and this and that and copywriting, and I see that translated to like the digital platforms. It's fair. I loved it because I'm in the field, but I sometimes think about what it would be like back in those decades to be in this field.
Yeah. Okay. So what I find interesting is that you took this sort of moxie and savvy and like this sort of forthrightness and this sparkle that you have, and you had to sort of apply it in a really personal way to, well, first let's talk about how we met. We met because you wanted to be a Girl Scout troop leader. You were the busiest assistant troop leader that I ever worked with.
Wait, can I tell you why and to tell everyone why?
What?
It's because I was a Girl Scout.
That's right. You were a decorated Girl Scout.
I was like a Girl Scout when I was young, and my mom put me in, and I had such an amazing time with like my friends and all these trips and arts and crafts. So when it was time to kind of look for a volunteering opportunity, I was like, of course I want to be a Girl Scout troop leader. And then I was like, Deneen, I don't even know how this happened. Did I like pick a troop? Did I get assigned to you?
I think they gave me your name because I was looking for an assistant troop leader, like someone, because you're supposed to have two grown-ups.
Right.
But I constantly ran that troop. You were like, I can't make it.
Wait, you're giving me a bad rep, Deneen.
No, because the girls loved you. I loved you, but you were so busy.
I was so busy.
All the time, and I was like always asking other moms to fill in, but you were like the assistant. You helped me with a lot of planning.
We did arts and crafts.
We went
to pony camp.
Yes, you were always good with a lot of things, but when it came to like boots on the ground, sometimes it was hard. But you were just like sometimes anyway.
I was your cheerleader.
Yes.
I was just there to support Deneen, and I was, like you said, I was the assistant.
Yeah, we hit it off from like the first moment we met, like really, and then you and Grayson were like sisters from a different mister, and
they were, and she was so young. I mean, she was probably 4.
You came for the
5.
second year of Daisies, right? When they were in first grade.
So how old are 5?
She was 5, going to be 6.
Yes, so they were all pretty young.
And then we did the bridging from Daisies to Brownies, and then Brownies
with that cake with the rainbow and everything.
Yes, it was so great. Everybody loved you in the troop. The moms loved you, the dads, everybody. So we were troop leaders and we became friends. Mm-hmm. But you were busy, and so there were times like I wouldn't see you for months. We'd talk on the phone, we'd do things. And then I guess we would hear about each other's personal life. And after a while, you kind of noticed that my husband was getting sick. But then, you would have a serious person in your life. And then at times you didn't. And then I think it was like when Gray was in 5th or 6th grade, I'm trying to think of what happened. You were battling something. And that's when I think you becoming an advocate really became something that sort of went to the forefront of your life more than like, I think you led a glitzy life. You always kind of dial that down, but I saw pictures in Paris and all these places on these winding staircases with these fabulous dresses and a lot of famous people. And you always, to me, led a really glitzy life. But then you were like, I don't go out. You don't understand. And I said this to you last week. I didn't fully understand the battle that you were engaging in. And then you sort of broke it down for me. And that's something that I think we wanted to sort of talk about today, which is something I'm very familiar with, becoming an advocate, putting that at the forefront of your life. But you were an advocate for yourself. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about where you were in your life, how things were really going along great. And then you had to make a decision, right? Like sort of tell us, tell
absolutely.
everyone who's listening, like where you were at and the decisions that you, I guess one decision was made for you with your relationship, but then.
And you bring up such a good point, Deneen, about it's so funny when I look back and, you know, you kind of said it when we met. I was in my early 20s. I was hustling, you know, hitting the pavement, the New York City like grind, really trying to advance my career and really going to events. And I was in PR and everything at a point. And everything was on social media and I got to travel and everything. But reality really hit. And I actually do consider myself pretty much of a private person in terms of, yes, I share things on social media in a curated way.
Yes.
And only my true community and friends and people that are close to me, like you and all my other friends, would really know what's going on. And so I was probably 28 when my father had passed first, which is pretty young considering, you know, at that time I was probably the first out of my friend group, one of their parents had passed, and I also simultaneously was going through a breakup. And so that sort of compounded of like things just happening all at once. And these are things in life that you don't see it coming, right?
You don't see it coming.
You don't see it coming. It kind of could happen at any given moment. And
it cuts you in a way that I think you're not ready and you can't prepare.
Absolutely. And so I'm sure all of that and the stress of everything kind of manifested itself into I have eczema. I was always allergic to shellfish. And during that time, I was so literally probably stressed and underlying stress that my eczema was horrible. I would have skin flares and hives and everything. And then I soon found out that when you're like trying to survive, you're trying to work and go through every day, quote unquote, grieving through a lost parent, going through a breakup at the same time without clarity, really, at that time, like a little confused, and trying to maintain yourself in what's left of you.
And what you think is the best form possible, right?
Yeah. So at the time, I'm trying to put up a good face. And because I have all these flares, I was using prescribed topical creams, steroid creams from dermatologists, which I'm all for derms and doctors and science. So I do want to put that out there. But over time, what I found out was my skin was addicted to it, holding on for dear life for not only the misuse of these topical steroid creams, but just my body was just on another level.
You couldn't go without it.
Yep, I couldn't go without it. So I started to, and I will say, tying this back to, I don't want to tie everything back to social media, but it's funny that I start to go down a hole and find out that there's a whole community of people that have gone through topical steroid withdrawal. And it's the concept of when your skin gets to a point where it does not know how to function without these creams and like suppress the flare. It's only a Band-Aid. When you go off of it, your skin gets 100 times worse. It's almost worse than the original. So I went through a whole health journey really during what I would think should have been like the time of my life. I turned 30, I'm like, 30 thriving, and I was in the lowest point of my life.
So you were, you had lost your dad, you had lost a really serious relationship. I know that was,
serious.
Well, at the time it felt serious.
Yes,
and you
absolutely.
You thought it may be
progressing.
Yeah.
I'm in my late 20s, exactly.
And I know you were with him for maybe a year and a half or two.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I've done a little research on topical steroid withdrawal over the past few days, just trying to prepare for this. And I've read that it could take anywhere from weeks to months to years. Every single thing I brought up on the computer said weeks, months, years.
Yes.
And there was no definitive.
And you don't know exactly, Deneen. You go into this only just praying and having faith that this is the right thing for you and your body, because it didn't feel right because at a point, doctors were like, oh, if this cream doesn't work, that they put me on prednisone. I was on oral steroids for 3 months. You're not supposed to do that. And then also shots. They're like, well, next step is like injections every month. And I was like, I veer on the natural. Like, I don't want to just like keep putting things, in my body. And so when I did decide to fully, I'm going to stop this, using the cream, my body flared tenfold. And there's a community that honestly, who have either gone through it, was really motivating and saying, keep going because your skin will heal. I then found out, simultaneously, I dual path an allergy test and I found out I was allergic to 7 things. So this whole time I was allergic to a bunch of stuff that I didn't know.
And you were still consuming, right? So you told me at dinner it was like gluten, dairy,
eggs, peanuts, shellfish from the baby, corn, which is a little strange, and bananas. Haven't touched bananas since one time I just like violently threw up. Okay. But everything's a spectrum. Some are, I have an EpiPen now, and the others are like hives, flares. So it's a spectrum of allergic reactions. But at the end of the day, it's your body saying, I can't have that.
I can't process it.
And I can't process it. And so when I found that out, I was like, a light bulb went off. I was using the creams as a Band-Aid because I was
still eating
all
that
this
stuff, but you didn't even know.
And I didn't know. And the stress of everything. And so it probably compounded. And, back to what, it's so funny because I really had a self-discovery healing moment during those so dark. So
that's what I want to get to is like, was it, and I don't want to bring you back to like the day your dad died or the day he broke up, but like, when did you decide, what was the day that you said, I'm not taking these meds anymore? What was that day like?
Yes. So I think it was I feel like it was the summer when after a course of 3 months on prednisone, and during that time, because you take these things and your skin just magically clears up, I like went to Ireland, my friends and everything, and I'm like, but it's all a patch. I come back in the summer, I seriously woke up one day and did not recognize myself because something had worn off. It was just rebounding. It was like, it would clear, it would come back, it would clear. It was like, I wouldn't even recognize myself. And I was like, this is not the path I want to go down. And at the time, which is so funny, I did not know what to expect. I just knew that I can't rely on going down this path in terms of, taking the creams and the medicine, whatever, because it was a vicious cycle. I kind of saw what people were doing. I tapered off. And of course, I do want to share my experience is definitely different. And if anyone out there is experiencing this, like definitely consult with a doctor because I will say it's a known thing now. But back in 2018, it was like a mystery illness and no one knew about it. Except
they didn't even have the term topical steroid. They didn't have a term.
It was
withdrawal.
Like very niche and you would find it on like an eczema blog and like underground people that have gone through it, and which is what I referenced earlier, people that were like, keep going, like look at before and afters. Like I went through this healing process. It's going to be hard. You have to believe that your body will heal from nutritious food, having healing things like soups, broths, celery juice, like whatever to detox your body. And, I went through that period where, and I'm sure if you saw, Deneen, all these horrific photos that quite honestly, back to the confidence piece of waking up and not feeling like yourself and not feeling comfortable in your own skin. It was someone I didn't recognize. And I looked at myself and I was like, I'm 30. I'm supposed to be 30 and thriving. Yeah. What is it? 30, flirty, and thriving. Yeah. I'm not. I also don't look like a woman. And you get like sort of your whole self kind of gets taken away from you overnight in a way. And so I was kind
your self-identity because you didn't recognize what you look like. Yes. You didn't recognize.
I didn't recognize.
I mean, I saw you and I remember thinking, okay, her skin looks different.
Yeah.
But I recognized you, but you didn't recognize.
Yes. Well, and that was definitely part of it where I had to really, in remembering who I was as a person outside of, I could not look in the mirrors. Like it was very, what do you call it? Just your confidence was definitely beaten down, basically. And to the point, like I told you, I was like, social anxiety started to creep in. I didn't want to go out. People would make comments like, oh, you look like you got a bad burn. Like, where did you go on vacation? Like your whole body's flaring and truly beet red, honestly, and flaking and this and that. And there's a ton of other symptoms as a result of topical steroid withdrawal. But I really had to use that time to kind of remember who I was in terms of being a great daughter, being like a great friend, and all the things that didn't, just because my outside, external looks didn't define me in a way.
Well, that's what I want to sort of ask you about, like a couple of things. A lot of us at that time, when we're going through something similar, whether it's topical steroid withdrawal, whether it's someone else who, I don't know, maybe they have really scarring acne, whether it's someone who's going through something, an addiction, I don't know, someone, just these are roads that we travel alone. We may have friends, we may have family, but we sometimes have to travel these things alone.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I want this show to do is to reach that person who, like me, when Jonathan was really sick, I was alone a lot at night. Like you, you had a thriving social life, but because of, I would say, the self-isolation that came, and I don't blame you for some nights and some days choosing to not want to answer those questions. What was that thing that helped you remember, I'm a great daughter, I'm a great friend, I am really great at my job, there is something more for me here? What helped you? What do you think you tapped into?
I mean, I feel like, and at the time, I think I needed something to focus on and concentrate, and work definitely was my channel. And at that time, my boss, she was so understanding of what I was going through. And she said, you can work from, like, this was work from home before COVID.
I know.
So she let me work, and I was so grateful. And it made me think, like, I'm so valued also for, like, letting me do this and work, because I am a great...
I remember kind of, like, asking to you, because it was before COVID. And I said something to you, and you were like, I don't go out.
Yeah.
I literally
was in hiding.
You're like, you're not getting it, Deneen.
I was hiding, and I am, and I know, to your point earlier, it's about your own, I guess,
stick-to-itiveness or wherewithal, right?
Yes. And yes, like, while I had a support system, like, my mom did have to come and, like, help clean. I physically was incapable of doing any of this. It would honestly hurt to shower, do anything, and move. But my mom definitely was
going through the withdrawal. Physically hurt.
Your whole body is just tight. Your skin's tight. It feels like you're burning, constantly hot. You're running hot and cold. A symptom is temperature regulation. You can't regulate your body. So you're freezing at one point, and then you're so hot. I've lost so much weight. I'm frail. I'm weak. I can't do anything. My eyebrows fell off. Like, that's it. Anyways, not to go on a tangent, but it was those moments that I was like, I'm so grateful for my mom. My boss let me work from home. Then I'm like, there are people that are here for me, but at the same time, it's my own. They can't help me and my body heal. I have to mentally kind of push through, and it was...
Amy has to be there for Amy.
Day by day, and any little thing like, oh, I got to do this alone. If my mom didn't come for that weekend, I cooked myself dinner. That was a win. That was a win for the night, and I got to take care of myself. And at the end of the day, that's all you really have. But I will say, it's so funny because while I was in hiding, I'm going to call it hiding, there are moments where I also felt like I showed up for my friend, the social anxiety that I talked about. If it was like a random night out, I obviously would not go. And at the time, my roommate and my friend, she's a friend and roommate, understood, and everyone understood what I was going to. But, I showed up for really hard moments. Like, I was a bridesmaid, I remember, for my friend's wedding. I'm in the bridal party.
I know, that's amazing.
And
that's so much, that is such a tribute to who you are inside.
Yeah, and it took courage. And I'm not going to and this is a shout out, Beth, she's my friend, but she's a bride, and she even checked in on me during when we were getting ready. Like, do you need anything? If you need something, it's okay, whatever. But think about the social anxiety of getting your makeup done on skin that's broken, basically.
Yes.
Having pictures, which of course I was joking, these are going to be photoshopped, right? Because I do not look like myself, but there are moments where I was like, I'm going to show up for my friends too.
Yeah.
The same way that they, have checked in from time to time.
Yeah.
But it was a long process because there was no end date. No one knew when it was going to get better. It was like, this is the road she's going to be on. We just got to see. But
did it make you think about people that were, because you felt, I think, at times a little bit disfigured.
Yeah.
Did it make you think about people that suffered something that was permanently disfiguring?
Oh, 100%. I think I was so, and not to blame this on my, what's the word? Like I was just young and dumb, but I probably, it was one of the times where I was like, the lesson was be kind because you don't know what people are going through. I was externally showing, but like there are so many things that people are going through that you don't know what's going on.
Because it may not show on.
It may not show externally, and it was really a moment for me. And not to say I was like not kind. My point is like there was such a huge lesson of like there are so many things that people are going through
that you just don't know.
And so. It was.
I just wonder if feeling that on the outside made you wonder about people that there was no withdrawal, there was no, like they were just something happened to them and they maybe were burned in a house fire or, and there was very little that science could do for them. I just wonder about that.
Yeah, no, and I think I feel like I have a newfound sort of empathy for people that like have gone through something like that as well.
I know that. Before my first knee surgery, I was doing a physical fitness challenge with Jonathan, my late husband, and I went down and I could not walk until I had the surgery.
I kind of remember that.
Yeah, and I just couldn't walk, so I was in a wheelchair up until I got into the OR, and then I was on crutches after the OR. But I remember like everything I had to be wheeled around an apartment that was not, and I remember my husband would make me a sandwich, but he wouldn't bring me a napkin or something to drink. So I'd have to ask for a napkin. Then I had to ask for a drink. And I got so tired of like, I just wanted to do things myself and the house wasn't set up for it. And I could not stand up. It wasn't a matter of will. The knee just wasn't there anymore until I got into the OR. And I remember thinking like, I feel so much for people that they've been told like this is the rest of their life. And I don't know what they do mentally to prepare for them. Maybe you do get a house that's adjusted so you can get your own damn napkin and drink and whatever. But it was only like 10 days in between the injury and getting into the OR. But I was so constantly frustrated and angry and like resentful and like I don't want to ever be in a wheelchair again, that it did make me think and wonder and brought me a new appreciation for people that have managed to find a happy way to go. Not happy, that sounds so stupid. A positive way to kind of bring, so that's all and I hope that anything I've said doesn't offend anybody who might be in a long-term situation. I don't want to make light of anything. But.
Absolutely. No, and same here. And I do think that there's something to be said. I do think if people that may be in certain situations, they'll find their light, whatever the end of the tunnel is. Like you may be in this thing, but then they think about all the other friends, family, like all the little moments. I think it was more about appreciating the little things.
And that's where you found your light.
Yes, where I was almost like, wow, being able to cook that one night without having
your mom
or people, and eventually, showers even hurt. And I was like, I just want to shower without the water feeling like it's burning my skin off. Not because it was hot, because of the raw skin. And the pressure of the water would kind of hit it. And that just didn't jive, if you had a supple skin barrier, the way that our skins are now. But when it's raw and breaking and whatever. So I really, it was, Deneen, it took really 3 years.
I was going to say, was it about 2 to 3 years?
If not 4, to fully feel like the skin barrier started to form and get better.
How long do you think you were in hiding?
I would say
because I know COVID happened.
So the 2 years before COVID, basically, then COVID happened. And I actually think that sped up my healing because I was like, oh, well, no one's going out.
You're like, woohoo.
I was like, social anxiety is gone. And I really got to be alone. And at that time was more like, okay, now everyone's taking their slow time. I don't feel like, I think a part of it, and we can talk about this too, about when you turn 30, like I was on a up and up, right? And like you're supposed to be doing all these things. And I'm not saying, and gosh, again, like the pandemic was terrible too, obviously. But like, I think that was a moment for everyone to slow down. And I almost was like, this is nice that everyone's slowing down. Also, I don't feel like I'm missing out. I showed up for big things like my friend's wedding and whatever, but I was missing out. My last 2 years of my
leading up to the pandemic, you were missing out. And then all of a sudden, the playing field was leveled.
Yes.
So then let's jump ahead to post post-pandemic. Now everybody's starting to go back out little by little.
Yeah.
Was that sort of a boon to you that it was little by little? Oh, let's meet at the park or let's do that.
Yeah.
Like, did all of a sudden you feel like...
And it's so funny you say that, because as everyone's reintegrating into like normal life, I myself was reintegrating with like my new skin in a way.
Yeah.
And I almost didn't, you have the trauma of like, oh no, if I'm out, am I going to need like lotion? Like I carried this like a small tiny bottle of lotion everywhere I went for like the first 2, if not 3 years after,
in case
like going
your skin
out,
tightened up.
in case something happened that I needed to like moisturize.
Yeah.
And that was, I think about it, it's like wanting to take care of it while I'm out public and not at home in the comfort of my home in my
like
PJs. It's a security thing. And I had to learn how to like kind of come back out to the world in like my new self while everyone's coming back to the world outside of pandemic land. But I really did feel like it was a rebirth. And at that time, COVID hit and I'm like 31. I turned 32. So now I'm feeling behind in general because I'm, when we talked about this previously about relationships and everything, but it's like, oh, now all this time has passed. Not only because of my time away,
your self-isolation,
my health journey, plus the pandemic, but then, I started to have a feeling of so much time has passed, right? And like, I wanted to find a partner. I wanted to do all these things, but like, has time
passed? By the way, I want to stop you there. You have to look at my Facebook podcast page because Frank Lloyd Wright, I don't know if you saw it.
I'm going to pull it up.
Frank Lloyd at Deneen Sig podcast. Frank Lloyd Wright did not do most of his work until he hit, I think it was like 75 or 80 years old.
Oh.
Did you know that?
I did not know that.
I did not know that until I saw it on someone else's page and I copied it.
I love it.
It's an old, I put it out there. It was like Frank Lloyd Wright did not do most of his work until he hit about 75 years old.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like I then soon realized there's no timeline for, I think there was societal timelines and it actually influenced, I think, when I was growing up, like, oh, I was going to get married by this, I was going to have a baby by this, da-da-da. But I soon realized you're on your own timeline. And what's meant for you, like what you're going to go through is going to lead you to the right way. And there's so many business entrepreneurs that do things at a later date or like, Kourtney Kardashian's had a baby at 43.
Christy Brinkley had a baby at 54.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
Yes, she had a baby at 54, I believe.
Yeah, Halle Berry also was one. I feel like there's a couple, and I feel like, and aside from like, obviously the biological clock of like females, that's a whole nother thing, but like hearing all those in success stories, like there's no number and measure for success. When it comes to business or when it comes to travel, like even like little things like traveling, like if you always want to travel, or whatever the case is.
So now we're in 2024.
Yes.
You have the dream job.
Yes.
Your skin looks absolutely beautiful.
Thank you, Deneen.
It looks just like when I met you when you were 22 or
just
23.
Like a young spring chicken with all the collagen.
Yes. You look just exactly the same as you did back then. You just posted beautiful pictures from Paris again, just like when I first met you. It's like what's old is new again. And I just want to say that I think you did bring, what this show is about is bringing light to dark situations. And I think you were in darkness. And I think you brought the light. And I think that if someone who's listening is going through, whether it's a personal health challenge or it's a challenge of being sort of thinking you're on a certain track with someone in your life and it doesn't happen, if you had to navigate losing your dad during that time, you didn't have any siblings to help you through that, which I always thought about you in that way, that you didn't have that after I lost my brother. Still thinking about if, God forbid, something happens to one of my parents, how hard that's going to be without my brother around. You've brought the light to a lot of dark things. And I think that you will continue to do that, and you shine even brighter now. And I don't know if you feel that. I see it looking at you, and I saw it last week when we saw each other again after a few years. And I hope that listeners that are listening are feeling that. And if you could leave anyone with something who's either, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of people who are going through topical steroid withdrawal, or if they're going through a different type of health battle that there isn't a lot of sympathy from doctors and there isn't a lot of knowledge and they have to sort of be their own. So maybe there's a tip out there for someone who has to be their own health advocate. I had to advocate for my husband and for my children and then for my parents this past year. But if someone has to be their own health advocate, do you have a tip for them? Or if they have to, I mean, I hate to call it self-isolation, but you sort of did have to isolate yourself to do the right thing for yourself. What's a tip we could leave someone with who has to sort of bring that light, bring that advocacy, bring that positivity to something that maybe is a little bit dark?
Yeah. No, that's a great question.
Or what would you have wanted one of us to say to you?
Yeah. I mean, I think it comes down to, well, first, if anyone's going through, you know, some sort of something that's more health related, I always listen to your body. Your body knows if you're feeling something's off, like continue to do the research and really go down the paths that obviously are available to you. But at the end of the day, you know, and it's hard to say because, Deneen, you know me, I'm a pretty optimistic person as it is. I think that's been my general view, but I had that stripped away from me and I was really in the dark, the most darkest of times. And I think it's just knowing that you are going to be there for you. And like the self-isolation was honestly helpful for me to be alone with my thoughts too and remember what made me who I am. And thank you for the comment because I feel like myself. I feel like that vibrant self again versus, and you will get to know who your inner self is throughout, you know, and kind of constantly remember why you're here and what you're here for. And, you know, there's a road that you'll be on that will lead you to better things. Honestly, I think it's just having an optimistic mindset. I know that's easier said than done, but I think even the darkest times, I was like, I'm so much in pain, but this will get better.
Okay.
And I had to tell myself that your body will heal. This will get better. You're not missing out on life. It sucks for now. You're going to be on dates again, right? You're going to have to do your hair one day. You're going to put on makeup soon, and really kind of pep talk yourself a little.
You will get better.
It will get better.
It will get better.
It will get better. Yes. And if it's not health related and something, if it's a breakup or whatever, you know, and grief is a different, you know, it's a ebbs and flows in terms of the grieving process. But anything like a breakup's kind of like you're grieving a relationship and it will get better because I think that there are lessons learned too in any little challenge of sort in life. But the ones that are thrown to you like curveballs, you just kind of have to catch it and run. You got to take it on and not let that control you. You almost have to catch it and be like, I'm going to handle this. I'm going to handle this and run with the curveball. Yeah. Run. Okay. Not let it hit you almost. Yeah.
And then just one other thing, what could I know I was going through so much of my own trial right then when you were going through yours with Jonathan. And but what could any of us, or what did any of us, I know I wasn't really present, but what could anyone have said or done that would have been really helpful to you? Or what did anyone say or do?
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything that was helpful, but honestly, it was my friends and people checking in.
Just to check in.
I think that
Amy, meant
so much. And
Me too.
And like I said, I think because I was in isolation, no one saw me, but they could see.
Just a phone call or
it was if I was outside, I was uncomfortable. And quite honestly, I think people that knew me knew I was uncomfortable. And I think that check-in meant a lot. And like I said, even my friend Beth was it was her wedding day.
Yeah.
And she knew and she was like, are you okay? And I remember we were in her house getting ready and she was like, if you know what I mean? It was difficult, but I think the check-ins meant a lot. I don't think there were any tips or anything shared, but it was just
I feel the same.
Action.
When I was going through the heart of it with Jonathan, there were people that checked in and I really appreciated it. Yeah. Or people that said, hey, do you want to meet? For me, it was connecting outside
and meeting.
And it was socially. And it was maybe just one drink or one cup of coffee. But so.
Just to kind of get you out of.
Okay, so I think the one thing we probably would both say is during hard times, having that person reach out is really important and connection.
Yeah.
Even when you're isolating.
Yes.
Having someone reach out on text or a phone call is still really important.
Yeah, I think it's super impactful. And I think I would say for all your followers and fans out there, if you guys have a friend or someone that's going through something, I think knowing that, just reaching out, because that just shows that you are aware of their situation and you just kind of want to say hi.
Everybody loves a hi.
Yeah, I love a hi.
Thank you, Amy, so much for being here today. I am so thankful that you and I got to sit down and have this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was so fun to be here.
And we're going to have... if you send us like your socials and we're going to have it in the show notes.
Oh, amazing. Sounds good. Well, so everyone will see my Paris photos.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Thank
you. And thank you guys for sitting with us on the space in between. Till next time. Thank you so much for joining me today. Remember that even in your worst days, there is always something beautiful. You just need to look for it. Until next time.